Profit with a Purpose. Pioneering social enterprises for inclusive growth. For the longest time, I didn't know what social enterprise was. I was always confused when I heard social enterprise. What's that? What's that? Well, the panel today will tell us more about what social enterprise actually is and then how you make the most of it. Our moderator is someone who lives and breathes as a social entrepreneur and a very successful one at that. Please let's welcome Molade Adeniyi as she comes forward. Clap, 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 clap. Welcome, Molade. The founder, Chess in Slums Africa, will join this conversation. Welcome, Tunde Onakoya. The second man on stage today. And joining up on this panel is a living, breathing entity of social enterprise herself. Today, she's coming up as the co-founder and executive chair of Sahel Consulting. Please welcome Ndidi Nwuneli, member of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Okay, she stepped out. And joining up also is one of the tallest women in the room with a very large heart for improving life and living. Welcome, Tonye Falugi Ekezie, as she comes up. She's the founder, author, and producer of Simone's Oasis. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Conversing about profit with a purpose. I now hand the microphone over to Madam Moderator for the next 40 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Joyce. And good afternoon, everyone. How are we doing?
We're doing good.
I don't get the energy. I thought they said there were aspiring women in here. Awesome, awesome. Good afternoon and welcome to what I promise you would probably be the most amazing panel you're going to listen to today, if I may say so myself. So coming off the back of the panel that we've just had, they're talking about how to make money, right? We're talking about wealth. We're talking about businesses. The questions were about people who were in business. We're now going to be moving that on to still talking about profit, but profit from a social entrepreneurship perspective. So Joyce was asking what a social enterprise is. I think I have amazing panelists that are going to do justice to the topic today. Profit with a purpose. Pioneering social entrepreneurship for inclusive growth. So when we think about social enterprise, right? Social enterprises are business entities that operate with the primary goal of addressing social or environmental issues while also generating revenue, which ultimately helps to sustain its operations. So social enterprises prioritize social impact alongside financial profitability. And there's lots of money out there. You know, there's impact investment. There's lots of ways in which social enterprises are raising money. Can I ask, maybe a show of hands, this morning when you woke up and when you made your way down here, how many of you were able to identify a social problem? How many of you, walking past something, your eyes popped? I see a few hands. The reality is a lot of us walk every day and we miss the opportunities. Social entrepreneurs, their eyes are always open, looking for what those social problems are. And you know, they range from unemployment, the litter on the road that you walk past, the waste, clean water, maybe a sick child, health issues, etc. So social enterprises are also not just not-for-profit. So people always think of social enterprises as not-for-profits. But there's also corporations, for-profit businesses, but they have a social mission. And the reality is they contribute to the economy. They contribute to the growth of our country. I think without social entrepreneurs, there's so much that will be left undone. So today's is not to hear about me or to hear my voice. I'm going to move right on. We're going to delve right into this conversation. And I'm going to be asking my panelists to just share with us their journey to social entrepreneurship. And how do you describe how your organization prioritizes impact alongside financial profitability as well? So Tonya, I'll start with you first, if that's okay.
Hello? All right, so when I'm sitting on these things, I always like to share something. I never thought I would be sitting in front of people, sharing my life, talking about my life. Public speaking is extremely difficult for me. I get nervous, I get shaky, but when you're driven to do something out of passion, you do it despite the fear, so bear with me. So, I'm here because I've been doing a social enterprise now for about 4 years. But Simone's Oasis, which is my entity, has been around for about 2.5 years properly. Social enterprise is driven out of passion. That's what it is. You don't wake up and say, I'm going to do this because it's hard. But you do it because you're passionate about something. So my story is that I have a child with Down syndrome. If anybody was wondering why I was wearing this t-shirt. And that's where the journey started. It was a surprise. I didn't know. It wasn't what I dreamed about to do or to happen in my life. But I had her. And she unfortunately had medical complications that meant she needed open heart surgery at 6 months of age. And we had to leave the country. And something that's very kind of matter of fact in the US, right? They're like, it's fine, we do this all the time. I'm like, you do what? Open someone's chest all the time. But regardless, you're meant to recover in about 3 months. And it took her 3 years to recover. So we were out of Nigeria for 3 years on my own, struggling. You get completely consumed, absolutely consumed. And one day, her heart started functioning well after, almost 3 years, and we were able to come back to Nigeria. And that's why my eye really opened. Because, number one, my daughter was the first person with Down syndrome I'd ever seen. First black person, actually, I'd ever seen. If you're in Europe, US, it's only Oyibo people you see. And here, I found out that nobody talks about it. Everybody hides them away. Everybody sends them to the village or to orphanages or whatever. So I was really taken aback because I was very open about it. For me, I was proud to have my daughter. I was blessed to have my daughter. And to be her mom, I always say it's like a badge of honor. So when people will say, oh, I'm so sorry, I'm like, I'm not sorry. Oh, oh, she's suffering. She's not suffering. Oh, it must be really hard. Yeah, but it's also really amazing. And so they would ask me, oh, you're so comfortable talking about it. People don't talk about it. So it started to register that maybe I should start talking about this thing. And what happened is my son came up to me one day. He was about 5 years old. He's 10 now. And he said, Mommy, I'm angry with you. I'm not happy with you. And I was like, because he's like an old man. He was born an old man. And so I was like, how have I done? No. He said, look, every day these people come and they play with Simone. And nobody allows me to come and join them and play. And then I realized, oh, wait, he thinks the therapists are like friends to come there and play. So I had to explain, no, Ko, this is your sister who's always annoying you, that you always complain she's annoying you. She has something called Down syndrome. And then he would ask, what's Down syndrome? I said, okay, Down syndrome is when you have an extra chromosome on the 21st pair of chromosomes. Hell, I misread it. I misread because he was like, what's chromosome? Chromosome. So I had to think, okay, yeah, he's 5. He's a toddler. I need to kind of break this down into his language. I'm not doing a great job. Hold that thought. I'll get back to you. And so what I did, I searched for videos, books, things like that, because children are really visual, right? So I thought, okay, let me find those things. And in that search, I was really disappointed. I was really, really disappointed because there was nothing that represented our story. There was nothing with, melanin of any shade. There was, and when you did find a good story, it was always a Caucasian child, and you liked the story, but they'll be like, okay, what about the follow-up. So there's no follow-up. It's like nobody wanted to tell this story. So I said, you know what? My background was TV and film production here in Nigeria. Some people know that. I had a very good career until all this happened. And, well, I wrote a story. And I took it to Magic Carpet Studios, and I said, help me illustrate it. I went to DocuLand, printed a couple of copies, and took it home, and I gave it to my children, and they were over the moon, like ecstatic. And a friend of mine who I know I'm going long, but you need to understand where this all happened. A friend of mine who I found out has a son with Down syndrome. I didn't know. She came over. My son showed her the book. And she was like, what is this? Only you? Only you? She's like, you need to get this out there. We need this story. And that's what started the ball rolling. I wrote the first book series that has a black main character with Down syndrome. I wrote the first baby board book ever produced in Nigeria. So all my stuff is 100% made in Nigeria.
Yes, a round of applause.
From creativity to print, everything, 100% Nigerian. I'm very passionate about this country. And that's really where it started. So created Ugo and Sim Sim. My daughter learns through music and art and the creative element. So I created this Ugo and Sim Sim, and I just thought I need to create something to house all my ideas. And you know what? I said, forget the parents. My goal is to educate kids, is to hang out with kids, create stories that they can see themselves in and they can use to advocate for the rights and for acceptance, awareness, and accommodation of children and people in general with special needs.
Thank you so much. A round of applause for Tonya, please. Can you hear me clearly with this microphone? Okay. So I think the one thing that I want to draw out of that is when you're thinking about a social enterprise, it's driven by you seeing a problem. Many of us see problems, but we don't think about, can I be the one to solve that problem? Is there something that I could do to actually be the solution to the problem that I see? Many of us talk about problems and spend a lot of time talking about the problems, but never really taking a step back to say, can I actually be the solution to this problem that I see? Tunde, I'm going to come to you next. A game that many of us love. I don't know, how many people play chess in the room? I play chess. A few people. Tunde, I think you need to do a master class for the women and men in this room. But a game that is loved by many, played by many. You saw that as an opportunity to truly transform the lives of people who I would probably call forgotten. You really embody the inclusivity that we're talking about today. Tell us a little bit about that. What birthed that, and how has that journey emerged over time?
All right. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak here. And thank you, Tony, for sharing your inspiring story. Sorry, let me use this because it's like my base is too much. All right. Okay. Zill or Clara. So, nothing starts out as an enterprise, right? It really does begin with empathy. And I was just sharing this with Tony when you asked the question, like when people were on their way here, like did they really notice a social disparity? The truth is, a lot of people do not. And it isn't because they don't see the problems, right? But a lot of people do not view it through the lens of empathy. So empathy is a gift, and not a lot of people have it. That isn't a bad thing, right? Because we're more inclined to want to solve a problem or to be drawn to a problem that has affected us at some point or that we have a personal connection to. And I'm saying this because there's always a genesis, right, to every remarkable thing that is done. And I think the closest nexus to that genesis, to building anything meaningful in society, has to be a pain point, and it has to be deeply rooted in empathy. And that was how my own journey started. I grew up in a small slum community in Ikorodu, you know. Is there anybody here from Ikorodu here? Nobody? Okay, him. Good. Okay, awesome. Ikorodu is a small place with a lot of potential. And I grew up in a really small place inside that Ikorodu. And of course, we didn't have access to a lot of things because my parents were not educated. But they wanted us to be educated. But that was hard because we could barely survive. But at some point, I had to drop out of school for like 2 years. I think it was after my primary school education. And there was no money again. So it was in that time that I found chess. I would always go to this barber shop, and one day he just brought out this small plastic chess set. And I saw it for the first time. And because I was a really curious child, I kept asking, oh, teach me how to play this. I would say, oh, just watch. And I would watch. And by watching, I got to learn the rules of the game. Eventually, I got back to school. And because I was a gifted child, I went on to represent my school. I won a couple of tournaments, you know. The summary is chess gave me an opportunity to escape poverty. And I don't just say this because of its cognitive benefits, but it really did give me my first real intellectual identity. My first real identity, because when you grow up in poverty, you'd find that a lot of things, the situation you're in, you know, you have no direct control over it. You're born into that situation, and that situation conditions you into the adult that you become. And that is the real tragedy of poverty. And it's interesting because we talk about inclusion, right? Poverty is not what the West says, that living below $2 daily, because we forget that even poor people represent like value conscious, even consumers, really. And the real consequence or the real tragedy of poverty is that these people and this class have been completely excluded from systems, rule of law, you know, education, you know, whatever it is. And because they do not have that access, they are conditioned to live a life of survival. And that was my reality as well. But chess gave me a way to break through that cycle because it gave me an education, it gave me exposure, and it gave me ambition, right? And that is what anyone needs, right? But most people will never know that because they've been conditioned by poverty in a way that they will never get to know their own potential. So chess gave me a lifeline. And 6 years ago, I decided that I was going to go back to the same community where I grew up and do the same thing for other children. And that has snowballed into this enterprise now. But that was the genesis.
Amazing. Can we give a round of applause to Tunde, please? So many things I heard from that, right? There's something about my personal connection. There are things that we're all connected to personally, deeply. Some of us, it is, you know, this power situation. And maybe a challenge, and I think from what Tunde has said, the challenge is rather than sit and complain about those things that aren't working, the way a social enterprise is birthed is by saying, I can see this problem. What can I contribute to actually solving this problem? And maybe I'll use that to share a little bit about the work that we do at WAVE. So I run an organization called WAVE. And one thing that we realized very early on, we turned 10 last year, and one thing we realized very early on is there are many young people on the streets of Lagos and Nigeria who have high potential, same as what Tunde has said, but no one was giving them a chance of an employment. And the reasons were they didn't have a college degree, they would never go to university, they didn't have work experience. I don't know how many of you go and knock on the door and they will tell you that, what work experience do you have? I want somebody with 5 years work experience for an entry-level role. And we decided to tackle that problem and take it on with our full chest, like they say. We thought if we gave young people the skills that they needed to access job opportunities and we expose them to employer partners, we can begin to truly turn the tide on youth unemployment. We could have waited for the government to continue to do the work, but some of this work is beyond the government. So 10 years on, we have reached over 80,000 young people in the city of Lagos and in other states, and we've connected 75% of them to work. And we continue to push that, thank you very much, and we continue to push that, but it starts with, one, a personal connection. Two is, how do I want to give back? I've been blessed in so many areas. What can I do? The society problems that I see, the pain points. What are those pain points that you see that you're truly turning around? Now, we've had this conversation, and I'm sure some people are like, hey, this is all feel good. Where is the money in this? At the end of the day, we have to eat, right? At the end of the day, we have to be able to survive. So I want to talk a little bit about that. So one of the reasons why people shy away from following their pain points or their purpose in this way is really around money and around profit. People say there's no money to be made in social enterprises. Can you talk to us? And maybe I'll start with you, Tonya. How do you balance profit and social impact? Is there even a way of making money in setting this up?
So it's not for the faint-hearted. And that's why, you know, like Tunde, you have to be driven by passion, immense passion, because it's extremely difficult. Now, you know, if you think about a regular business, you know, most regular businesses don't pass 3 to 5 years, right? And how many regular businesses are profitable? So I didn't start off thinking, oh, wait, about the money. I was just doing it because the fact this is driven by my life. And the fact this is driven about me wanting to help others in similar situations understand that it's okay to navigate it, to share some of our lives, but also share strategies as well, and understand that we have to start young. Now, it is only, I've been doing this now since, say, about 5 years, but Simone's Oasis is about 3 years old, 2.5, 3 years old. It is only now we're starting to make money. And for me, that's not an accident. It takes time to sow a seed, right? If you think about farming or growing anything, you want to grow something in your garden, right? You have to prep the soil. You have to plant the seed. You have to nurture that seed. It starts to grow. The weather conditions, the other conditions around it have to be good for it to grow and bear fruit. And that's literally what we have been doing. We have been just at it consistently, sowing, which is why I say it has to be driven out of some immense passion. Because there are many times I wanted to walk away. But I said, you know, I've invested too much. I've done this. And then when I went to look at other things I could do, I felt like my soul was draining out of my body, you know? I felt that God has really put me on this earth, on this mission, and I could feel it. So just keep going. If I'd given up, I won't be here today. You know, it's like January came and people in Nigeria woke up and thought about me. And were like, so what are you doing? How can we support? And it's going to be a very interesting year. So I think you have to be in it for the correct reasons. You have to be consistent. You have to keep going. You have to understand who else is in the area with you, right? So you have to plug into a community because there's a lot of good things that come out of collaboration. Don't just work in your quiet space. You need to get out there and network, talk to people, and be seen. People need to know you exist. So I started social media. Got on social media and started talking, and you see what happens from there. But you can't be quiet. You have to collaborate, you have to network, and you have to let people know you're around.
Thank you so much, Tonya. Tunde, same question to you. How do you balance profitability, social impact? How do you keep your eyes on both?
You know what I really like? I like that we're not calling it a non-profit, that we're calling it a social enterprise, because I think there's a clear distinction. But at the same time, the lines are very blurred. If you want to change the world, right, somebody has to pay for it. And this is something you would come to the quick realization of. Whether you're doing a business or you want to impact people's lives, whatever it is, it needs a lot of capital, right? So you must treat your social enterprise the same vein. It is not enough to have good intentions. You know, you have passionate or you have this personal ties to the story, and because of that, you're driven by this passion. The world doesn't really care about that, and it's another hard realization you'd come to. The world doesn't deeply care about the social problems, right? The world cares about profit. It's a capitalist world. So what exactly are you proposing? Your dreams, your vision, maybe few people would care about it. And even the few ones that really care about it, no one is truly altruistic. Okay, maybe there are a few people, but something must always give. So the first thing you must have is leverage, right? You want to build something. You have a vision that you understand. You know the pain of it, right? But the idea isn't complete yet until you find a way to bring other people into it. Everyone has a role. The people that would be on the team, the people that would man the different mountains for you to climb, the people that would fund the vision, you know, everyone has a role to play in it. So it is your responsibility as the leader to bring all of these different elements together, right, to drive the vision. But you need leverage. And just like she rightly said, community, networking. But I would even go further to say, don't consider yourself a charity case, right? Always have some sort of value, right, to propose. Now, when we started Chess in Slums, it's one thing to start a non-profit, a charity organization to solve a social problem in a conventional way. That has its own challenges. But when you now say you want to do chess in slums, you know, it's like, what's this cognitive dissonance? It doesn't even make sense. Like chess in slums, chess is an elite game. How is it relevant to children in the slums in extreme poverty that just need to eat or they need food? Just go there and just put spaghetti, take your pictures, you know, whatever. How is chess going to be relevant? And people just kept asking me this question, and I didn't have an answer to it. But this is what my conviction was. I had faith in this one idea that if we could teach chess to children from the poorest places, from the worst slums, right, we could give them a beginning in education, a way to show the world that these children can also be intellectually inclined. And that is something you want people to believe, because that is the only way that people would give them the opportunities they deserve, because there's already this single story about them. So that was what I thought I wanted to change. But then I didn't know how hard it was going to be to communicate that to other people. So for the first 3 years, I kept communicating this in the wrong way. I kept talking about the impact as, you know, in the synapses and the cognitive benefits of chess. And nobody really cared about that, because just like you ask people if they play chess here, just very few hands. A lot of people don't understand because it's a very complex game, right? So the first 3 years that we did it, it was just in the dark. But what changed was me now stepping up to storytelling. And that is why you need social media, right? You need to put yourself out there. And putting yourself out there comes with a huge responsibility as well. So when I started, I had maybe 2 followers, and I started sharing human stories, stories that dignify the children we're advocating for. And people may not understand chess, but they understand that if we give people the right opportunities, they can be like us. They can look like us. So we started making outfits like this for the children to wear, you know, with the filler. Children in poverty, and people would look at them too as like, wow, how is this possible? Oh, this child is from Osho, the under bridge. Oh, this child is from the slum, but they look so good. They look like me. Then I have to respect them for their ambition. They're showing great aptitude for chess. It means if you give them technology, education, they will show equal capacity for that. So the only real gap here is opportunity, because talent is universal, but opportunity isn't. And they just kept telling the stories. I kept sharing the stories. We kept building an audience. And because people can see what you've always said, what you believe in, they would invest in it. You don't even need to ask anymore, because you have shown proof of work, of concept.
Yes. So, thank you so much. A round of applause for my panelists again.
So I'd like to add to that. Tunde's made a really great point. So the point I want to add is that when you have a social enterprise or a nonprofit, you're always looking for money, right? But I would say, I'm not going to beg, right? They need me. Now, why do they need me? I'm coming with them with a business case for their business. Yes, I'm running this social outfit. This is what we do. But actually, you need us. For example, if you're a bank. No bank has attended to the special needs community, and we are vast. We have spending power. We have children. The average household that has a child, at least one child with special needs, their spending, their financial running as a family is at least a third higher than the average family. So we spend more because we have to. And how I've approached it when I'm meeting and pitching is that there's an entire ecosystem here. When you're looking at primary health centers, you're looking at clinics, you're looking at therapists, you're looking at schools, you're looking at where we shop, the kind of nutrition we have. There's an entire ecosystem that is not attended to. So I look at it like, for example, with a bank, why can you not create a financial product for our community? We bank, we have money too, we need these services, and therefore also put in things in place that encourage us to come to your bank, because we know that, oh, you have the pink account that is for mums with special needs kids, and in there, and then they become to be part of that ecosystem. So when you're approaching, you have to approach with a business case. It's not, come, beg, give me money.
Thank you so much. And you know, that brings me to, thank you. Please, a round of applause if you're doing it, do it well. So you know what I draw out from the two, from what you have both shared, is that money follows impact, right? When you're beginning to solve a problem, you might struggle at the start because people might not understand the impact. But through communication, through beginning to, you know, you're dogged at the work that you're doing. And when you're working in the social enterprise, or you're solving some of these problems, you're digging your heels in and you're going all in, such that money is not your first thought. But when you begin to have the results and people begin to see the result, the roles automatically reverse. Then the money begins to follow you versus you going after the money. But I wanted to pick up on your last point. I think we'll start with that. How can there are people in the room, they might not be running social enterprises. We're not asking people to start up social enterprises. But even within my for-profit organization, I don't have a social enterprise lens to it. How can businesses, individuals begin to think about that social impact lens to their organizations? Like I say, there's issues and there's problems everywhere. I don't believe it's for a select few. I think it's for everyone. So to business owners out there, how can we begin to have a social impact lens? I'm going to take questions from the audience. So we're going to go through this round, and then I will open it up. So if you do have any questions, please begin to get them ready. Who wants to take a stab at that question?
I don't want to burst your bubble on that question, so maybe let Tunde, and then I'll burst your bubble after.
Okay, so for people that have businesses, right, I think the first thing is to forget about the idea of like charity that, you know, most of us do, especially for the optics of it, right? For example, and this is just a personal opinion, like I don't like it when people go to like poor communities and they just throw food at them and they take pictures, and you know, a lot of people do this, right? They don't treat the people with dignity, right? If you want to help people, don't take that dignity from them. It's important. You must never demean the people you're trying to serve. And so we need to first put that idea aside that charity must just be, hey, let's quickly arrange some things for the optics and give handouts. And it is such an interesting opinion because there's actually a lot of hardship and people need those things, right? But I think a more effective way to go about being altruistic is to have a plan and a sustainable one. If you want to maybe set aside a part of your profits, of your income, of your revenue, right, to create some impact that is maybe even outside jurisdiction of your business, then you must think deliberately about it. It must never be like an afterthought, or let's just do it, you know, so quota, CSR, whatever. You must even have maybe someone on your team, you know, that leads maybe the CSR for you. That is the level of like deliberate thought that should always go into whatever you do for society. And I'll give an example. Like now, there's this tech boom right now. A lot of, you know, VC funding is coming into that ecosystem. I mean, maybe not so much these days, but you know, you see that a lot of people, and when you provide an incentive for something, you know, people will start building that solution, right? So there's a lot of incentive to solve like a fintech problem because there's VC billions of dollars coming in. So fintechs will keep springing up every day. But guess what? They're only building solutions that is solving the same problem for the middle class that 100 people are already solving for, right? But there's an entire class of people, 100 million people, that solution is just insignificant for, right? So that is an example, for example. So what do you want to do to serve those people and create some sort of impact for them? You think about it and you tailor your solution in a way that can be meaningful to the community. You're not coming to impose your own grand ideas. If you want to say, for example, a good thing to do, go to a rural community, adopt all the schools there with dilapidated structures, help them repaint, put tables and benches, set up a library, do a computer lab. And I can tell you that the impact that would have, it's incredible. Like reading a book changed my life. Because somebody gave me 2 books, Gulliver's Travels and Animal Farm. And it was the first time I was able to dream outside Ikorodu where I grew up.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Tunde. Tonya, are you sure you're going to break my heart?
I'm not going to break your heart, but I just think we also have to be realistic, right?
Yes, please.
when any kind of outreach is driven in a business, it's very rare. And it's usually someone inside that business, something has happened to them, and they drive it. So I can use an example of GT Autism Week. That's about 13 years. This year will be 14 years. And that was driven because a lady who was very high up had Dotun Akonde, she was there. She had a son with autism, and she drove it. So most businesses don't operate like that. They have a CSR budget. They go to wherever, drop food, snap picture, and go. And this month, March 21st, is Down Syndrome Awareness Day. Now, a couple of years ago, social media, I got very, very upset, and I let people know I was upset. Because this is what happens. These things come around, and these big corporations, they will snap picture. They were wearing bright socks. So you wear mismatched socks, right, to represent chromosomes. And they went all around the social media, their whole team. And they've never done anything. It's a bank. They've never done anything to help the community. So you have no rights to get up there and start virtue signaling. And I let them know. I was on one TV program as a host. I let the whole of Nigeria know. I was very angry about it. So really, these things are driven by someone from inside. Yes, you can have a CSR department. Yes, they can have a limited budget, and they can try and do their best. But you have to drive it from within.
Thank you. And I think that the education that we're giving people today, they're not going to be like those people who just want the photo up and are going to be on social media. The idea is, if my business is in a certain place, in a community, rather than coming in and going every day, you're asking yourself, how can I give back to this community? What are the pain points of this community? Because honestly, we were talking about collaboration and partnerships. You'll be surprised that the very people in the community, they are the very people that are going to help your business continue to grow and continue to thrive. But when you're intentional about thinking, and not from a selfish perspective, but from, you know what, I work in this community. Maybe there's some waste that we provide in this community. So your CSR might be, you know what, we're going to take over the waste disposal of this community so that we ensure that the waste that we are generating and creating isn't blocking the gutters, isn't blocking the pipes. That in itself is just something that you're doing as a give back to the community, such that when it rains, there's no flood in the community. You are not coming with your Jeep or your car or whatever you're driving in, and everybody else is wading in the, in the flooded streets because the drains are blocked. So it's really thinking, and I love what you both said about being intentional. Sitting down, it's not something you do just because. They say we should do something good. We want to have some photo up on social media. It's asking yourselves, this community that I work in, that my business is in, what are their pain points, and how can I be part of the solution to the problem in that community? Another round of applause for my panel, please. We're going to take questions before we wrap it up. 2 questions. I've been told that I can only take 2. I see 3 hands. Joyce is still like, 2. No more
I'm
than 2.
I'm already standing.
So she's already standing. And then we'll take one from this end. Please go ahead.
All right, good afternoon once again. My name is Amaka Chibuzo Obi. I run an organization called Wives Roundtable, which has an NGO arm, the Wives Roundtable Foundation. So the Wives Roundtable Foundation basically caters to low-income female entrepreneurs. So we're trying to increase their digital literacy so that they are able to use social media to grow their businesses. These very low-income entrepreneurs that, sell petty trading.
Okay.
Now, I heard when Toyin mentioned, she goes to an organization and she's not asking for charity. She's not begging them to give her money. She's coming with value, and she expects them to recognize that value and, bring the funds. And my head blew because this is what we have been trying to do, rather unsuccessfully, because like she mentioned as well again, you have to find someone in that organization who believes what you believe for you to be able to drive that conversation with them. And most times, you don't know who to go to. So my question is this. How have you been able to, so I took a bit from what Tonya said, but I think I'm directing the question to Tunde, because what you do, I've been trying to rack my head.
You haven't told us your question
yet.
That's
the question I'm about to ask him. So what you do, I don't see how you will go to an organization to say, this is the value I'm bringing back in return for them to, give you the funds that you're asking for. So my question is this: how are you able to get funding without actually saying this is what, or rather, what do you say? What is that value you're bringing back? Because it's not coming back in terms of naira and kobo.
Okay.
So you get what I'm asking, right?
Yes.
What's
But
the
Tunde,
value
let's take
you
all
are
the
giving to
questions together.
those organizations in return?
Okay, thank you.
All right,
Thank you for
I
that
got it.
question. We'll take a second one from here.
My question is directed at Tonya. So Tonya, I had said at the last IWD Wimbledon event, I grew up with someone that had Downs. We didn't know she had Downs. In fact, I cringe at the things that we used to make her do, because we just thought she was a bit slower. And by the time she traveled, she had hit more marks than most of the people that were at her stage, number one. Number two, she's a full adult now, fairly independent. We're very proud of her. And she's always had that mentality of, I can do anything, because she started with children. I mean, we saw her 20 years later, and I ran to my mom and said, she has Down. My mother said, we didn't know, we didn't see it. So children don't see it. My question is, how are you driving advocacy? Because the problem is the parents. The problem, obviously, is in the children. How are we driving advocacy from the top? Not only for Downs, but for disability and policies that will, help to make sure that an awareness that it's not rubbing off on you, it's not going to kill you, and that these people, these children are amazing, wonderful people that we all should just wrap our hands and love and, give them their best shot in life. How are we doing that? Or what are you doing about it? And what can we do to help you?
Thank you very much for that question. Tunde, could you take the first one, and then
Okay,
Tonya
all
the
right.
next one?
So, yeah, I mean, now it's a lot easier because I'm relatively famous. So, so we don't even send proposals anymore. Like, companies reach out to us because do you know? Because they've seen an opportunity for some cost marketing, and this is something you need to understand. People are going to try to use you, but let them use you, but don't let them misuse you. All right? There always has to be an exchange of value. Guess what? And I'm going to say this, and I'm going to be very, very honest. Let me give an example. When the Canadian Embassy, when we did a project 3 years ago at Oshodi Under Bridge, we went to Oshodi Under Bridge, one of the most dangerous ghettos in the country, and we turned it to a classroom for children to learn chess. And it became such a phenomenal success story. And the Canadian Embassy reached out that, see, the High Commissioner would like the kids to visit. And I'm like, okay, that's good, but can they come to Ocean and Abri to visit the kids instead? And they're like, what do you mean come to Ocean and Abri? I said, yes, the Canadian High Commissioner should come. That was ridiculous, right? But he came. Not only did he come, he came with the Royal Naval team. I think there was a delegation, the Canadian Royal Naval team. And the Royal Naval team came, and they played chess against the kids. And the kids beat all of them, right? And the High Commissioner was there with the area boys or the children, and it was just such a beautiful moment. And we got to learn chess together, we played chess together, and we had a moment. And the Canadian Embassy got to support us. But guess what he did for them? He made them look good, right? And that's some value. We've done so many things, right? So you have to think about every partnership differently. What we did with the Canadian Embassy was different. Now, we're currently building a chess academy with Lufthansa Airlines. So it's like a 3-year grant deal, right? We're going to build the academy. It's going to have their name on it. They're going to get that benefit. They're going to bring the executives to come and play chess in that space. And so that is always going to happen. When we met with the DLD conference, like the children taught the delegates how to play chess. There have been so many cases like that where we think about partnership and what we can contribute as well. It has to be a two-way thing. And because we work with children doesn't mean that we don't have value to give. There's this smarting project that I do, and when Future Africa reached out, I'm like, these teenagers can make a proposal for you for your next project. Just let them do it. And they brought it, they're like, okay, they're intellectuals, yes. And they did it, did the proposal, did a deep dive data analysis, and they got paid 600,000 naira for it. And the children did that. Right?
Amazing.
So remember, you also have some value to give. You just need to find that sweet spot, that synergy. It doesn't have to be something grand. Even if it just makes them look good, you've given them some value, honestly.
But you're not compromising on your value as well. I think maybe just to add to that, this didn't start overnight, right? It's a journey. And that's what it is about building social enterprises. It's a journey. It's not going to be instant access, but you have to stick at it. And just picking on something, I know Joyce is already on the stage, but picking on something, he talks about partnerships and collaborations. Who are those that you can partner with? Who are those that you can share your vision with? And it's through those collaborations, through those partnerships, that you also begin to attract the right kind of investment as well. So Tonya, very, very quickly, if you could just take the question around advocacy and systems change.
So there are three things that we go by. You're looking at awareness, acceptance, and accommodation. So they're called the AAAs. And it's Zuzi Bolodeoku who coined the AAAs. Now, specifically, I don't operate in the sidelines. I operate in the mainstream because I'm very much about what we're doing being in the mainstream. So I didn't open up a foundation and bring your child, bricks and mortar. I said we are going to use the creative element, the storytelling element, and technology to do this for us in the mainstream, right? And I looked at what the LGBTQ plus, etc. community were doing. Whether you agree on it or not, they are pushing hard. So I'm like looking at that and I'm learning from it. And I said, yes, we're going to do the same things. It's through storytelling. Now, we have a podcast, Special Moms Africa podcast. So you can listen to that, share it with people. And that really talks about the parenting journey. We talk about it every episode, someone cries, but it's a safe space because this dialogue is not happening, right? So that we need to create that dialogue. Now, why I say our primary target market is children, because exactly like you said, children are open, right? They're open. Once they connect with the stories, they will be begging their parents for those stories. In fact, parents send messages to me about they learned all about this because of their children. These children will grow up and they won't just think about our kids. They will include these kids, and these kids will be able to sit at the table and have decisions made by themselves, with their own voice, with their own advocacy. And so when you're working through this, the mainstream, people begin to look at it, and then they go back and they start to look at the policy. They start to look at the legal side, because as we move forward, we're about to start some data and research, actually. There becomes data that can be used to support or change advocacy. There's so much I could say about this. Now, we're also planning the Special Moms Africa Conference, which is practical workshops for supporting parents with special needs children, because there's a lot of these conferences that happen in this space, but it's all talk, right? We need to be able to empower the parents to do the work at home. Informal therapy, it's called informal therapy, because 99% of us cannot afford to pay for occupational speech, language. It's just not there. We can't afford it. It's only the top 1% that can be affording it, but you want to help your child. So instead of spending those months and hours trawling the internet, I'm saying, you know what, I've learned, let me teach you what I've learned. And that is our mission, to start to say, you can empower yourself at home, the tools are here, we're here to guide you. And I think if a parent wants that, we're there to support. So I would say awareness, right? Acceptance, and then the accommodation.
Thank you so much. A round of applause from our amazing panel. A journey of 1,000 miles starts with just one step. So as you leave here today, I hope we've inspired you to start thinking about your businesses through a social impact lens. Don't just walk past that problem. Don't just talk about the next problem. ask yourself, how can I be a solution to this problem? Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure moderating this panel.
Thank you so much. And our deep thanks to Molade Adeniyi for steering this conversation exceptionally. We'll take one group photograph, just the three of you, and then we'll ask our festival creator to join in, and we'll ask our mother in the house, Lady Maiden Ibru, to please join in the next shot together. These are people leading change through social enterprise, inclusively, ensuring that indeed services are being rendered, lives are being changed, money is being made. Nobody is begging. There's a lot of exchange of value. And there's that height thing going on right there that I can't even get my eyes off of it right now. Like, what's going on? It works. Yes, Tunde there, yes, this works. And then it goes on one side, the black on the other, and it's all right, you know. I'm just... I got the eye of the tiger, dancing through the fire. And yes, the world will see you roar through all the challenges until it becomes easier. Please appreciate them very much for the work they do, the sacrifices they're making.
We have like equal parts boys and girls in our programs because I, for one, believe that, you know, girls can be excellent at chess. And there are a couple of our girls that we train that are highly skilled, right? So, and that's the beauty of chess. There are no stereotypes. There are no gender disparities, right? Anyone can play and anyone can be great at the game. You know, it just, maybe a simple analogy. In the game of chess, the queen is the most powerful piece. But the king is the most important piece, right? The queen has so much freedom on the chessboard and her power is just unlimited. Of course, we like to think about this, reflecting in the work that we do, that, you know, boys and girls should be given equal opportunities to thrive, right? Where they are judged based on their competence and abilities and not because of their gender. So we live in a society, you know, that is very biased, right? And this is something you have to acknowledge in your efforts. We've done a project where we found a community where, you know, girls were being sold into marriage because the people don't believe that girls should go to school, that they should be empowered. And, you know, these are things that deeply hurt, you know, our society, right? The entire fabric of our society. Because if women are not empowered, then we're not going to grow economically. It is just simply, it is that simple, right? So it is quite challenging, right? And, you know, but we can't relent in our effort to continue to educate people, to create more awareness, and of course let more women to take up space, right? Because we need new role models for the young girls. We need new role models for those young people to aspire to. If they see this great woman doing this remarkable thing, they can aspire to be like that person, right? And that is how we really like inspire, you know, a new generation, a new community that will be conscious of the bias, you know, for gender, the gender disparities.
So inclusive growth for me means that as our society moves forward around economic, social indicators, that we don't leave anybody behind. So if you look at social and development indicators, you look at education, health outcomes, livelihoods, life expectancy, you see that both genders, male and female, the elderly, the children, the marginalized, minority groups are not left behind. Everybody moves up together and everybody benefits from the GDP growth, from the foreign direct investment, and from all the trends that exist. If you leave anybody behind, then it's not inclusive. In our society today, we are leaving women behind. We see clear indicators that women are not economically empowered as much as their male counterparts. In the agriculture sector, for example, female farmers generate 30% less outputs than their male counterparts. Female SME owners generate 60% less profits than their male counterparts. Similarly, we're leaving our children and our elderly behind. 1 out of every 3 Nigerian children is stunted. We're leaving them behind. Our elderly, the same thing. Our life expectancy is 57, and the elderly are not being cared for the way they should. We should not leave anybody behind to build a society that thrives in Nigeria.
Our inclusion not only focuses on women, it does include men too, because in this arena of special needs, the voice of the man is rarely heard, and you found that
they don't really have safe spaces of which to talk. So something which we do is we always try and include fathers in what we're doing, because with them involved, along with the women, it creates a stronger family unit, a stronger support network, because raising children with special needs is a difficult journey. It's a joyous journey, but you need support. You can't do it on your own. So having both the mums be supported by the dads and other males in the family and extended family really helps to bring a better outcome for these children.